In an era of new media and influencers, creators with a cause are uniquely positioned to support the SDGs, spreading the word about the global goals and inspiring the next generation to meaningful action. Let's hear from a few of them. Hello, I'm Nadira Hira. This is the SDG Action Zone, and we're so excited for the conversation that's coming up. Because today we're convening a global range of influencers to discuss how the role of creators has changed in recent years as the whole idea of activism itself has evolved. There's now an expectation that those with a channel must also have a cause. And it's clearer than ever that new media and influencers can be integral to solving old, traditional problems. They can be a force for good and a force for the global goals. Before we talk to the creators, though, we're going to hear from two very special guests. Melissa Fleming, the Undersecretary General for Global Communications at the United Nations, and Malik Ducard, VP of Content Partnerships at YouTube. They're here to tell us more about how the UN and YouTube are ensuring that this new media is a positive and protected space. Melissa and Malik, welcome.
Hey, great to be here and with you.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you actually to kick us off by telling us a little bit more about yourselves? Melissa, why don't you start?
Okay, I'm Melissa, and I lead communications for the United Nations, which is an amazing job because I get to, try to inspire people to build a better world through, global cooperation.
Amazing. And Malik?
Hi, great to be here. Really an honor to be here. So I lead partnerships across several areas at YouTube: learning, social impact, family, film, TV, and health. Again, really happy to be here.
This is so exciting. So I think let's just jump in. We know the internet is the best resource there is to discover the global goals and find out more about them. And we also know it's not just an educational tool. In this pandemic environment, we've seen online platforms be an invaluable source of entertainment and community in some pretty challenging times. But there is also a need to ensure that people are receiving the most up-to-date and accurate information possible. So how are the UN and YouTube protecting those of us engaging online and supporting access to credible information?
Well, yeah, I think this is such an important question because I think context, we are experiencing a global pandemic, and this is the first pandemic in history that's taking place in the social media age, which is a good thing because we can reach so many people with good, responsible, clear information. But it's a dangerous thing too, because there are bad actors out there who are creating misinformation and disinformation and using the same channels to reach people in ways that it's, stoking fear, confusing them, and even risking their lives. So, I mean, it's just so important. And one of the problems with UN information, and that's where we need YouTube and other major platforms where, people are spending most of their time, is that, first of all, our information is based on science, and science is ever changing. This is a novel virus. The guidance wasn't crystal clear from the beginning, and it was evolving. Whereas the purveyors of misinformation and disinformation, they just speak in black and white terms. And so the other problem that we have is that our information in general is not terribly entertaining. So we need help in, taking this really important, science-based, factual information and converting it to content that is optimized for social media channels, optimized for sharing, and is also uses the influencers that are so reach so many audiences on YouTube, for example, to help us really penetrate for the greater public good. I'd love to hear what Malik has to say about this.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying, and I think that the creators and the artists breathe life into a lot of the authoritative information that we all need to get out to communities. And one of the later panel participants, ASAP Science, actually did one of the very first COVID-19 videos on YouTube, really deep diving into what is it, how does it transfer from person to person, and They followed that up with a lot of great informational videos, but it's animated, there's music in it, and it's easy for a wide population to embrace. But at YouTube, we're also thinking about how can we leverage and harness our platform to share and convey the right, accurate information as well. And one of the things that I'm proud about is that early on, we've used YouTube's homepage to really convey a lot of important locally and globally relevant authoritative information from the CDC and the World Health Organization and other local organizations as well. We launched a COVID-19 news shelf that has breaking news and brings information that's current and reliable to people right away. We've also added these information panels, which are panels that, again, connect to local health organizations that has, if you're a user and you're searching for a video or you're on the home page, you're able to click through directly to the health organization. We had about 300 billion views, or impressions rather, around that type of content. So harnessing the platform and the reach of the platform, we believe is really, really important in getting that accurate information out.
Did you say million or billion with a B?
Billion with a B, 300 billion impressions of info panel information going out.
I just have to shamelessly underscore that, because that means there's an incredible need, but also that the platform is having an incredible impact, right? Which is a huge thing. I mean, I feel like cheering. I've been trying to be good about not interrupting people when they're talking, but hearing science, hearing real organizations, hearing credibility underscored is amazing. And Melissa, I have to prompt you just a little bit, because isn't there a platform sort of secret called Verify that we should talk about?
Absolutely, yes. And we really immediately saw, I mean, this is as much a communication crisis as it is a public health crisis. And we immediately saw that we needed, to do more than the resources that we had. So we created an initiative called Verified. And the idea, in the words of the Secretary General, was to kind of flood the internet with content that was based on science, on solutions, also solutions so that people know, what next, where's the hope, and solidarity to show we're all in this together, that there's global cooperation going on. And so at the same time, we've been asking people to join us as information volunteers that are kind of digital first responders who we help to educate about how to spot misinformation. And really to help in their own communities, because as we know on social media channels, very often the sharing is done peer-to-peer or inside groups, and it's very difficult for big organizations like ours to penetrate. So we're really calling on the public to help us, and we're also really trying to partner with the likes of YouTube and big social media platforms to help us not only elevate the good content, and Malik cited that those excellent examples of what YouTube is doing to make sure good content is seen by people, but also to look at their own algorithms to see how they can better warn people when misinformation, disinformation is there, suppress misinformation and disinformation. And really just make sure that the public, for the greater public good, is protected by being well informed.
Absolutely. And you're taking a strength of the UN's and helping it to direct people to more accurate information, which I think is almost a no-brainer, but has actually been challenging to do historically. So how cool that we're in a moment where you can do it, and you're actually doing it in a pretty glam way. I mean, Verified has a really cool ring to it already.
We got help, and I want to call out to Purpose, which is a fantastic organization, social mobilization organization that we've partnered with. And with funding from Luminate Foundation and the IKEA Foundation, who really kind of saw the need in what we're doing, because where we had the gap was to really take our data and science and turn it into content that people want to consume. And then really distribution. So I think but yeah, and to be cool. And Verified is a very cool brand, and it's and people are definitely reacting to it. We're out there in countries all over the world in different languages, and really kind of responding when we see gaps in public health in information, but also where we see people being misled. We try to step in with really good information. And just to flag the next stream of our work, we're going to be continuing on the public health side, but we're also going to be working very intensively on vaccine confidence, building vaccine confidence, so that when there is a COVID-19 vaccine, that people will be willing to take it. Because disturbingly, there are growing conspiracies and misinformation and all kinds of around vaccines, and people are starting to, if not become hesitant, they're even already pronouncing themselves as refusing to take it even before it exists, which would be really a shame. We all want to get out of this COVID-19 crisis, and really a vaccine is really, really needed.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little. Malik, did you want to jump in? Sorry.
I just think Verify is absolutely great, and the only thing I would add is, and Melissa hit on influencers and the folks who help to make things kind of cool and fun. I think working with influencers not only to amplify messaging, but to make sure that influencers have the accurate information as well. And making sure that we as a community are sharing the facts for the influencers to take out and amplify and interpret. I think that sometimes getting out the way so that messages can be amplified is really important. And what I mean by that is one of the things that we did at YouTube around the stay home push was to work with creators to bring them together, share some information about the dynamics of the importance of staying home during that phase of the crisis that we're obviously still in. And then from a YouTube standpoint, get out the way. Allow them to create their own PSAs, their own messages that we help to amplify a bit, but it's really their voice and their story. And there are over 700 creators who sort of lined into that messaging and made it their own. And across that initiative, we had about 3 billion impressions just on Stay Home Alone. But I think that breathing life and getting out the way so the creators can make their magic is really key.
It's wonderful. And I just have, we only have a few minutes left, but because this has already been a great conversation. But quickly, I would love for you both to reflect on just this idea of how sort of new media can engage specifically the next generation, because it's so clear that they're the ones who really want this like platform engaging, cool content, stuff that's resonant and engages all these sort of cool and modern storytelling techniques. So how does the new media piece fit into the next generation and engaging them to embrace the global goals and get behind their success?
Oh, I think, absolutely, essential, and one of the best tools that we've probably ever had to kind of break out of the UN's castle walls and to reach people who matter. And I think just being so inspired by the Fridays for Future movement, and seeing how they used new media, to gather, new media to organize, new media to send messages to the world, and how we were able to join them, and how they were able to also join the United Nations and promote also the message. We were really join forces on climate action, using also new media tools. And so I think we absolutely need this. I think for the global goals, the Sustainable Development Goals are just beautiful. But what we're seeing in this, from COVID-19 is it's kind of just, it's lifted, it's exposed what the global goals were trying to achieve, but weren't able to achieve yet. terrible poverty, inequality, injustice, digital divide, lack of access to healthcare. So I think in a way we have this amazing opportunity because people are like, oh my God, we don't want to go back to that. And we already have the blueprint for, solutions, global solutions for the world. And that is in the SDGs. So we really think we can kind of newly unveil them, make them cool, maybe with the help of YouTube and your amazing influencers, and really capture the imagination of the youth who are the future of our world.
And Malik, what about you?
I love what you just said. And, I fully agree. I think that this generation, they speak the language of social media. They speak the language of video. It's their first and second language. And I think that this generation, a person who's got a smartphone, social media handle, a YouTube channel, like they are empowered and they see themselves as empowered. So I think encouraging that and breathing life and supporting that, but then also bringing the information and the background and the data. Like I love when I see matchups. I love when I see let's say a hip hop artist match up with a health official, and these are real examples. The hip hop artist has the voice, the heart, and the love of the people. The health official may have the information and the data, but may not have that footprint of an audience or that credibility with the audience that we really want to get to, and having those mashups in a natural way, I think is something that we'll see more and more of, and this next generation is really embracing.
I have to say, there are so many takeaways from this awesome conversation, but I think I've said cool more in my chat with you two than I ever have in a conversation like this. So that has got to be a good sign. Thank you so much, Malika and Melissa. It's really special to get to talk to you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and really great. I really enjoyed this as well.
Now to our creators. Why don't I let you introduce yourselves? Greg, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yes. Hi, I am Greg Brown. I'm one half of the YouTube channel ASAP Science, where our goal is to try and make science make sense. And more recently, we have focused a lot on talking about the climate crisis and diverse perspectives in STEM, all while still trying to make science accessible and interesting to as many people as possible.
Incredible. PRAJAKTA?
Hello everybody, namaste. I am PRAJAKTA. I'm from Mumbai, India. I have a YouTube channel called Mostly Sane. So I started off making comedy videos about 5 years ago, and then very organically it sort of flowed into making more socially responsible conversations. So I actively speak against hate speech, about girls' education, against body shaming, body positivity, not against body positivity, for body positivity, and overall everything that my audience and I sort of feel for every day. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. You can say it again. And last but not least, Daniel.
Hi there. Yes, my name is Daniel Howell, calling here from London, England, where it's very warm. We don't have air conditioning, old buildings, very clammy right now. And I make comedy videos also that are usually about terrible, awkward things that have happened in my life. But as the years went on, I started to open up more about personal experiences, and that led me to talking about mental health, and from that, other socially responsible things. And I'm actually now writing a book that is a guidebook about mental health called You Will Get Through This Night. So it started off as comedy, and now I'm the mental health guy. So yeah, funny how it works out.
That's amazing. Thank you guys so much, and welcome to the SDG Action Zone. Awesome. So I love it when the script I have just sort of naturally follows the conversation, because the next thing I was going to do was sort of ask you each questions directed at you and encourage everyone to kind of jump in and have a conversation. But it's awesome that Daniel, you and PRAJAKTA both mentioned audiences, but Greg, you started from a place of like the world motivating you to change. And I wonder, what was the audience dynamic for you, Greg? Like, how did that audience, your audience, help you find your voice on these social responsibility topics?
That's very interesting. I actually think I mean, it's a very fascinating conversation about science. It's something that we've been talking a lot about. Even last year when I did this panel, we were talking about the science of racism and how actually the scientific space has been sort of hijacked in many ways by these sort of like negative communities. So we've really been fighting against that, trying to talk about diversity in STEM, being queer in STEM, as queer and feminine like speaking people. We want to make sure that we understand that science isn't just for the people that we've always been told, which is like straight passing white men. And so actually, when we really decide, like we really talk a lot about climate change, we talk a lot about like race issues in science, and it's surprising how challenging that is sometimes for our audience. So I think the other two are probably talking about this like beautiful response from their audiences, but we are, yeah, like we're trying to talk about the Green New Deal and these things that have been like looped in, sadly, to politics in a way. So in many ways, we have lots of support. We're definitely like gaining a community around the things that we're talking about, but also at the same time, we are seeing the challenges of trying to explain science. And I think right now, with what's going on in the world, we can all relate in our different countries to how science is getting like attacked. So as much as I would love to say that like we just started talking about these things and everyone just like agrees with scientists, like it's a very interesting time. So our audience is coming with us, but there have been some challenges as we've shifted to these more, I guess, serious conversations.
Well, before I go on, clearly I need to ask you, what are the challenges? What's the feedback been, and what's been, you know, what have you seen? Yeah,
okay. Well, for example, our most recent video is about sustainable energy and how do we actually build a grid with the Green New Deal out of renewable energy. So on one end, from a renewable energy perspective, we included nuclear energy as a renewable source. We think that's important, but there are people in sort of, if you were to say the left or environmental side, who don't consider nuclear energy a renewable source. And then on the other hand, there are just people who think the Green New Deal is a way of like entering in socialism, and you know, people who are against socialism. It's like those are the types of conversations that we have to deal with in the comments. But it's all very fascinating, and at least we feel like we're pushing the needle towards something. And young people are the people who we have less of an issue with. It's amazing that the younger people on our channel are really responding to the Green New Deal. It's them who have to inherit this earth. So there's a bit of an age gap too with like, the different voices that we're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this idea of you guys as kind of modern activists, even though clearly you didn't start out wanting to be that. And Daniel, I guess for you, how would you define that quote unquote modern activist? And do you consider yourself one?
I think this is the interesting thing about how social media has completely changed our society in the last kind of 2 decades, which is the modern activist nowadays. What the internet has done is it's given anyone around the world a platform and a voice. Anyone can go out, they can create a community, they can build an audience, they can create in any way that they want. And this is what we're seeing from our audiences and the different communities and all the different opinions on the internet, is that anyone really now has the power to affect change. And I think that that's a really good thing. So the activists before, it was this kind of gate-kept thing where someone watching someone on TV or hearing them on the radio would think, I'm listening to that inspiring speech. How do I get involved? Whereas now you're looking at, you know, the younger wave of politicians, people getting involved with justice issues on social media. And it really gives you the feeling that anyone watching that feels like they have something to say or they want to be a part of making the world a better place can kind of use social media to do that.
Yeah, it's beautiful and grassroots and kind of organic, which PRAJAKTA is a word that you used, which I think is exactly right. But what would you say that PRAJAKTA, that those in power, so people both in government and in this sort of social impact world, are missing about how not just to reach audiences, but to really connect with them?
You know, honestly, I feel like I am so happy with the whole digital wave that has taken over the world, but also India especially, because India joined the race a little bit later. But the way it has, so I'm very happy and proud to see that so many organizations and so many people have it right, but there are still some, I feel like, who aren't listening. You know, there's a lot of speaking at happening, there's no speaking to happening.
Mm-hmm. Is that like, from both the top and bottom, or do you see it more from the top?
I think more from the top, where I feel like a lot of times, because and this genuinely comes from a place of just trial and error that happened with me on my channel with all the conversations that I wanted to do. I just very quickly realized that sometimes you are speaking about issues without listening to exactly what your target audience is sort of trying to tell you. And I feel like that can be a shortcoming sometimes when it comes to speaking about things. So I feel like just overall wholesome conversations. I've always said this, I genuinely believe that conversations can stop wars and conversations can make everything better, and just getting two people to sit down and talk and listen can make everything different. Is why I feel like I just wish there were even more frequent and fluent conversations happening.
Absolutely. And Daniel, I actually want to circle back to something that occurred to me when you were talking earlier. For a lot of people watching, and especially as you go kind of up the age ladder, I think it's very difficult to imagine themselves in this space of creating the way you do, of putting yourself out in the world so that, you know, potentially billions of people can see you. It requires, I think, a level of bravery, which, as you know, as you're writing a book, and I can certainly agree as a writer, is also required when you're putting yourself in these very vulnerable spaces as a creator. So I wonder, what do you think about that? How do you push yourself to be brave? And is there a kind of like, you know, a process for people out there who want to understand how to be in the world that you guys are, or want to just be braver in their own social responsibility versions of their own lives?
I think that clearly you look at the younger generation, the Zoomers out in the world, and they have no problem just putting themselves out there. They're doing backflips. They're woke. They're ranting. It's all going on. It's second nature to them. And, you know, it was terrifying for me when I started 10 years ago, the audacity of thinking anyone would like to listen to anything I have to say. But I would say you don't have to think you need to have this qualification or this kind of profound quality to be heard. If you honestly think you have something important to say, if you want to start a conversation, if you want to do something in your community, then anyone watching this, I think what you can see from just the sheer amount of creators and young people that are involved on social media with The Voice these days are anyone can do it. And you might have to, you know, check that voice in your head that's saying, I do have to be brave to kind of tell myself that anyone should be listening to me. But exactly like you just said, it's the conversations, just one conversation at a time can change the entire world. So even if you start small, get used to it. And then before you know it, you might be doing a TED Talk, who knows?
I love that. I love that everybody can do a TED Talk if they want to, in their hearts. But how important is the creativity piece? Because it isn't just, you know, throw yourself out there. All of you are incredibly creative and in different ways around different topics. And I wonder if you could speak to each of you, speak a little bit to that idea of creativity and doing things in this kind of authentic way versus the traditional press release version of some of this conversation that we've seen in the past. Greg, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I think when you were bringing up sort of maybe older people who have a harder time being authentic online, I think a lot of, maybe if they're in positions of power or if they're in politics or maybe they work at the UN, things that can muddy things down is the bureaucracy of like what they're being allowed to say, what they're told to say. As creators, we are lucky. I feel honored in so many ways that I just get to like read scientific research and say it like as concisely and as interestingly and from my voice as possible. Whereas I know like Nature magazine, Science magazine, they have mandates. They can't just talk in the same way. So I do think that if there's a way that you can figure out what it is that you as a person care deeply about, what it is that you can on a Friday night talk to your friends like pretty confidently about and love to like explain, take that seed, and from there, with whatever logistics you have, or if you're a young person watching in school and you can just say whatever you want, that's when you can then sort of create these videos, because the creativity flows out of your passion a lot more easily than when you're trying to force it. And so I just think sometimes when I think about like politicians like getting online and like trying to be authentic, I'm just like picturing like a, you know what I mean, like a brief of like bullet points and then just being like,
And it's true. And it can look awkward too, right? Because they feel awkward. This whole situation is kind of manufactured. But I love this idea that it's like, it's your dinner table. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about when you're with your friends or with your family? And what are the things that get you excited? And be that person in every other aspect of your life, including as a creator. It's a great way to think about it. What about you, Prajakta?
You know, honestly, I also feel like as someone who's grown up hearing so many people telling me about what's going on and what should be, what you should be passionate about or what you should feel for, causes you should speak up for. I feel like if I see a video that really is on, very honestly, I just feel like people are also bored of being told what to do. So the minute
Absolutely.
you include them into this, especially younger people, since we're talking about that, I feel like the minute you include them into this equation, and it is more of, guys, we're going to work towards this as a community, and it comes from someone whose content they enjoy, someone they relate to, someone they feel like they are very similar to, and they believe in the things that they are talking about and selling. I feel like that just brings a completely new perspective to all these causes. It's very simple. Like, one of the worst examples I can think of is that we have in India, especially, we have like very typical advertisements, all right, where you have like selling products like this and that. For the longest time, everybody thought that's the only way you can sell things, till influencer marketing became a thing, and then suddenly it was not this anymore, and it was a much simpler, much easier conversation, which was much more believable. I feel like that is exactly what is happening also with social causes and things that creators and other people who are influential speak for. I just feel like that communication becomes extremely simple and believable, because we've had so many big companies and big people telling us, names that we've known. Okay, that's a millionaire, that's a billionaire, and he keeps telling us about all these amazing causes. But when I see someone my age, from my ethnicity, speaking my language, talk about it, I just want to believe in it more. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it. They're modeling it. They're the example, rather than, I love this idea of just telling you what to do. People are bored of being told what to do, especially because it's so generic often. It's not giving you like real tangible stuff that you feel like can make an actual difference. Daniel, what about you on the creativity front? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can I also add this?
You can add anything. This is a chat.
Sorry, what? What?
I said, go off, sis. You have permission to.
He's doing a rah-rah.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, another thing. It's a very small thing. I remember I was a part of one of these conferences that were talking about like global goals and stuff like that. And I was so excited about it because all the people I looked up to were going to speak there. And I came back so disappointed because all I saw was charts and statistics and diagrams and numbers, and I just came back. I'm like, how does that make a difference anywhere? How is that? I didn't learn anything, or I didn't feel good about anything. But then I saw very similar conversations happening through creators that I have always looked up to, and I have seen doing what they're doing. And then I saw it as casual as vlogs where they're traveling to places where they're making a difference happen. I learned about this one young girl in India who eradicated child marriage completely from her village. And these things which came from people closer to home is when I was like, oh, okay, now I get what you're saying. Also for someone like me who's been so active in this, it was just a wall when I saw all those numbers, and I'm like, how?
Yeah, no. I got to tell you, I'm biting my tongue because in this virtual environment, I don't want to mess up your audio, but I literally am like, yeah, exactly. Because people respond to stories, not statistics. Yeah. And it's hard because, and Greg, I'm sure you can speak to this, it's not that numbers don't matter, but framing matters, right? The way that we talk about all that. But before we continue that, because I didn't mean to tag you, Greg, I wanted to make sure we got Daniel on creativity, and then we'll continue this.
Yeah, no, I'm actually going to just say it's exactly what you were both just saying, which is the power to change things comes all from authenticity and believability. And whilst, facts are charts and those are great, the power of storytelling is so compelling. And especially when it comes from a place of authenticity. If you want to inspire people, if you want to create change, then to anyone watching this, whether it's a young person thinking about how they can be creative, or anyone watching this that wants to think about how they can affect change in their career or the global stage, just share your story. What does this mean to you? What is the perspective? Why are you passionate about this? If you are authentic, if you can get people on your side, everybody can relate to the same issues, and the power of a good story coming from personal experiences is really the most profound way to do it. So yeah, that's what I do.
Absolutely. I mean, you're living it, right? But Greg, do you want to do a coda on the statistics and charts version? Because I don't want to down statistics. I just want to make sure that we give people all the tools.
You're wrong. No, I'm kidding.
You totally could do that.
No, you are so right. It is 100. It's like we've made videos about this too, because so we use a lot of scientific information and statistics and charts, drag us, no, but to back up points. But it is so much more impactful to hear stories. I think we've seen that a lot over even the last year, like the civil rights movement that's happening in America, that comes out of stories, even though those statistics have been around for so long. And actually, something that I find interesting is I always read, focusing on climate change, I always read these books like The Uninhabitable Earth and all these science books, and I'm just like, oh God, no offense to Jeremy Rifkin and all these people, but I'm just like, oh, it's nothing. But it's people like science fiction authors like Octavia Butler, speaking of activism, so The Parable of the Sower series, The Parable of the Talents, I think are two science fiction novels that have made me more activated to be an activist and made me more understanding of what climate change is going to do than these books consistently written by men about the world's ending, the world's ending, the world's ending. Here's why, stat. To me, that was a shift completely in my brain of how we talk about these things. So of course, science is rooted in charts, it's rooted in statistics, but you need communicators like us and other people, and even PRAJAKTA and Daniel in their own ways, to communicate the information to people. And if you don't have that piece, it's the piece that science is lacking. That's when you see what's happening right now with vaccine hesitancy and all these things. It's because scientists are having a hard time telling stories. And so I think that what they're saying is so important, and it's really important within science. It's just something that it's a muscle we haven't really flexed that much in our societies.
Absolutely. But there's this version of it, and I love that you mentioned sci-fi. Most of these books behind me are sci-fi, honestly, or a good portion of them, because that's a vivid way of representing a reality, and I think encouraging people to try to avoid that reality, which hopefully is kind of where people are at right now. I would be remiss, I guess, if I didn't turn the conversation sort of the other way, because you guys are all awesome creators. Even in this conversation, I can tell how passionate you are, and also how intellectually rooted what you're doing actually is. There's often a critique, I think, especially again, coming from older folks or people who are more entrenched, of creators, where it's oh, everybody thinks they're an expert on everything. And so why do I want to watch your video, you random person who is just, I guess, living your life and thinks I need to know about it? So what do you say to that person, whether they're, a curmudgeonly young person or somebody in their 70s who just doesn't quite get why we're all sort of turning ourselves into armchair experts? Does silence mean no one?
You are correct. That is no. I would say that, firstly, it depends who you're watching and what they're talking about, because it's safe to say that people like Greg and Mitch, I trust them to know what they're on about. I watch that science video and I'm like, them's the facts and a good story. Thanks, guys. I learned something. Someone like me is definitely on the side of, I'm telling you my personal perspective. The book that I'm writing at the moment, obviously, it's about mental health. It's kind of a guidebook to help people understand how they experience different emotions. I am writing that in consultation with a qualified psychologist. So anyone reading it that is like, oh, why should I be listening to this guy? What's he talking about? What does he know? And it's like, well, I can tell you my story, and on my YouTube channel, you would see a funny story. If I'm doing something else in this context, yeah, I am trying to talk, kind of about something more scientific, but then I'm backing it up with somebody who's providing real research, and we've made sure that it's all done. So sure, sometimes you're just watching a funny video, you want to hear someone talk about something, maybe just their lived experience of it is really valuable and part of the conversation. Sometimes it's just the facts. Sometimes it's the middle ground. I think they're all valid. We just need to, go into situations with an open ear, depending.
Absolutely. I would virtually high five you if I could right now on the psychologist piece of it, because again, we're kind of creating protocols in real time for this space. And I love the idea of spreading the word that young creators are not irresponsible. It's sort of, you're building up this, this baseline and this rubric for how to create and how to do it in a cool way. Go ahead, PRAJAKTA.
Also, I feel like relatability plays a huge role here. Because if you look at it, growing up, even if you don't think of people on the internet, we've always had friends who knew what they were talking about. We've always known family members who spoke like they were experts. There's always going to be that one uncle at every family dinner who speaks about everything like he's an expert at that. There's always going to be. I'm just saying that digital platforms, say a YouTube, overall the internet has just given you a platform to showcase these things. And the second part of it is it's a video on demand platform. That's the thing, that's the beauty of internet content. You do not have to watch content that you don't like. You only gravitate towards things that make sense to you and are relatable to you. And what's even better is there's everything for everyone. So I feel like that the whole relatability factor, at least for me, plays a massive role when it comes to this.
And you have choice as a viewer, right? Because, I have 3 of those uncles and I know which one I believe and which 2 I'm kind of like, okay. so you have to trust yourself.
Subscribe to and which one are you going to block?
Exactly.
Can I say
Greg,
one thing on that too?
Yeah.
Like something that has been happening like within the academic community and institutions is a reckoning of like who were the voices that always were considered to be experts. Again, coming back to science and like who we consider to have voices in the science community. They always have looked a certain way and been from a specific perspective. So there's a really I think it's so important that we understand experts and like academia, but there's also another aspect of this. Once you can get deep enough into it to be like, well, wait, who are the key holders in academia? What are the voices that are being left out of those institutions? And so therefore social media and creators and people can come to the forefront and like what you said, be more relatable potentially than these maybe like the way you described this like curmudgeon-y person is like the type of person who sometimes I want to be like, but do you understand who gets to decide who gets to be experts in the academic setting? Because there's a lot of issues there that we don't have time to talk about right now, but it's not this black and white, like these people are right, these people are wrong, these people are smart, these people aren't. That's just like, life isn't binary like that.
And there's this incredible kind of democratizing going on where voices that have been traditionally blocked out are now in a completely different space where they can actually be in a conversation that directly relates to them. So I love this. I could continue talking to you guys all day. It's wonderful. Can I just ask you each finally quickly to give us like a call to action? Like what's one thing that everybody out there can do like right now to advance the global goals from your perspective?
I would say that listening to the younger generation, it's kind of like a canary. I think that all you need to see is that there's certain issues that are political, and then you realize they're not political issues, they're kind of just facts of science. These are inevitabilities. And when you see the entire generation of young people going, we recognize that all of these things, all of the global goals, they're facts, they're issues, they're happening now. This is the future, address the change. That the sooner all of us take steps to do that, the better, because anyone that is fighting against the current, they're fighting a losing battle. So I think that even if it requires some bravery to stand up and go against the grain in a certain situation, it is the bright future that I hope that we are heading towards. So be hopeful and get off your butt.
Good advice. PRAJAKTA?
I think for me, it's always going to be making conversations. There can never be too many conversations you've made. Please speak up for things that matter to you. Please speak up for people who you want to support. Please publicly make sure that you're making conversations, and that doesn't stop, because it's never the first conversation that works out. It takes thousands and thousands of those to sort of spiral into something that might just move the needle a little bit. So yeah, make conversations, please.
Amazing. And Greg, last word to you.
Yeah, I'm going to mirror what Dan said. Like, I just think the most intelligent people, it makes sense, are the people who are in school, who are in university, and who are in high school, who are spending their 8 hours a day being taught things from a different perspectives. I think it's like, young people, you are so smart. You have so much information. You have the up-to-date information. Don't allow us adults to ever tell you that you don't have the intelligence that it takes. Like, you are smarter than your parents, okay? And like, it just kind of makes sense. You're the ones learning all day. What are your parents doing? Working for a corporation or something. And yeah, and then it's just like the climate crisis is the thing that I think young people, we all need to get together and talk about, and you know what you're talking about.
That's what I call a call to action. Thank you guys so much. To our YouTube creators, this is amazing. I hope everybody out there becomes a YouTube creator, and we'll see you again in the SDG Action Zone.
Thank you so much.